Greetings, people of the interwebs. Jake here, and with me is my good friend Tyler, which he's back for his second video, and in this video we'll be talking about, I guess just Star Wars in general, because, Tyler, you're fairly new to the Star Wars franchise.
I would also like to point out this is the second video I'm appearing that will hopefully get uploaded because the other one didn't.
Yeah, but anyways, so I guess just like, we'll first, like, kind of rank the Star Wars films, the 7 that are out right now, what we think is best to worst, and then just, we'll kind of go through our overview of the franchise. More so with you, since, again, you're, new to the franchise. It is always interesting to hear the perspective of someone who's kind of just now jumping into the series, rather than someone like me who's grown up with the series since, you know, I don't know, like, I probably first saw Star Wars when I was, like, 4 or 5, back in the 90s. So, I guess we'll start with you. What would you rank the Star Wars film from, like, best to worst?
Well, probably my favorite, which already is going to be where everyone is going to shoot me, is probably my favorite was Episode 6.
I don't disagree with that. I know there's plenty of other people who think that 6 is the best, but, proceed.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't know, but, alright, so wait, do I keep listing them?
Yeah, so 6 is your favorite, and then just go, down the list progressively as you get to your least favorite.
Let's see. 6 was definitely my favorite. This video is already off to a great start. Yeah, 6 was my favorite. My second favorite, quite a few choices. It's either 4 or 7.
Okay.
It's not Episode 5. Honestly, Episode 5 was probably... It's not saying it's bad, but it's probably my least favorite of the original trilogy.
Huh. Okay. After you list your, rank them, we need to go into that. I'm just curious to see, like, why that one's lower. But anyways, proceed.
Something tells me this is gonna be an interrogation later.
No, not an interrogation. I'm genuinely curious. Like, I'm not one of those people where it's like, if Empire isn't your favorite one, it's like, you're wrong, you're stupid, get out!
That's why I know a lot of people are, and then other people are like, yay, someone agrees!
Yeah.
Let's just hope the majority of your audience is not like that, where they're gonna somehow find me like Liam Neeson instead.
I'd say so long as you don't say, like, any of the prequels are your favorites, you should be good.
We'll get more into that. But, let's see, so, like I said, BR, then probably, I can't figure out if 7 or 4 is, my second favorite, then, I guess, I'm just gonna say right now, they're par.
Okay, I think that's fair.
So then 5 would be, what is it? 5 would definitely be, my third favorite. 3 is obviously now, like I said, this is then, we're just gonna go all the way kind of downward. 3, but, I guess we'll get more into 3 later. And then it would be 3, then 2, and then 1 would definitely be the worst for me.
Okay, so mine is a little bit different, because I like most people, Empire Strikes Back is definitely my favorite, which, by the way, I, recently did rewatch the original trilogy, just so that way I could properly rank The Force Awakens, because I've seen that 3 times, so I think I've got the gist of, like, how I really feel about it, and I'm, like, because if I had, like, ranked it after the premiere, the first time seeing it, I probably would have been like, oh, it's one of the best movies ever, because I was in fan mode. But after the second and third time seeing the movie, I can critique it a little bit more, but granted, I still love the film. But anyways, I digress. So, for me, it would go Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and maybe slightly controversial, I'm going to go with Force Awakens and then A New Hope, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? What the hell? They're kind of like the same movie. And I'll get into that a little bit later, as to why I think Force Awakens...
Probably each film, like, something tells me this is going to be a long-ass video, because we're probably going to go into in-depth about each of the 7 movies.
Yeah.
And probably not the TV shows, because, well, also, I can't say much about the TV shows, because I've not seen them.
Clone Wars is really good. I haven't seen Rebels, but I've heard nothing but good things about. So yeah, Force Awakens, then A New Hope, and again, I'll get into that a little bit later as to why that ranking. And then after A New Hope, it goes 3, 1, and 2. So I guess let's work our way up. So your least favorite is 1, and mine is 2. So I guess why do you like 2 more than 1?
Simply because for me, how to put it, it's actually funny because now that I'm kind of thinking about it, a part of me doesn't know because they, for one end, like that's for me. I still feel like 2 was just still much of a step upward.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back at, there's still quite a few problems with 2.
Well, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of problems with the prequels, but yeah.
Yeah, but now that I'm thinking about it, there's really no, I guess, I don't know why, almost particular reason or big reason why I'd say 2 is, I think, superior to 1.
Okay. So I guess for me personally, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but so I will say this: 2 is probably more entertaining than 1 in terms of like the action sequences and stuff.
And the sound effects, all that jazz.
Yeah. But I guess like the main reason I'm ranking 1, Phantom Menace over Attack of the Clones is, at least in Phantom Menace, there are a lot of boring moments in that movie, but there's at least a full, solid story in Episode 1, whereas in Attack of the Clones, there's a beginning, there's an ending, but then there's just some stuff in the middle, where it's like George Lucas, again, had a clear vision of like, here's how the movie's gonna start, here's how it's gonna end, and then someone else was kind of like, so, that's cool, I like this, I like that. What's, like, where do we put in the middle? It's kind of like, I don't know. And I guess he just kind of, like, just wrote stuff, and I guess enough people were, again, with the prequels, there are too many yes men, so they're like, great job, George, love it! But, and again, like, not that the dialogue is that great in any of the prequels, it definitely got a lot better in 3, but, like, with Episode 2, there is some of the worst actually, probably the worst dialogue in all the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons why, because looking back at it, because sure, freaking, fuck, I can't remember what his name was, the guy who played Anakin in Episode 1.
Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd, yes, thank you. Like, sure, he was, well, obviously he was a child, but, definitely, it's just, God, where do we even begin with?
Well,
it's just, I'd rather probably tolerate Jake Lloyd in Episode 1 more than Hayden Christensen in Episode 2. Versus 3, where he got better, but he was still far from Academy Award worthy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Although, funny story, though, there's actually a documentary that I watched recently. It's, like, on the making of Episode 1. And it actually shows you, like, some of the auditions of, like, some of the kids who auditioned for Anakin. And I think it came down to, like, 3 people, one of which was Jake Lloyd. I forget the names of the other 2 kids. The other 2 were actually a lot better than Jake Lloyd. Like, one of them in particular, he was good. Like, especially for a child actor. But for whatever reason, like, even, like, the people who are watching the audition tape, they're like, yeah, that kid's really good. He even kind of looks like a young Luke. Or, I guess, Mark Hamill or whatever. And George Lucas was just kind of like, yeah, but this Jake Lloyd kid, I don't know what to expect from him, so I'm going to go with him. It's like, what? You're going with him because you don't know what to expect? What?
Oh, but it's like he was talking as Obi-Wan. It's like, I'm not sure, but I'm sure this boy is very talented.
It's almost like Sidious was sitting behind him. It's like, yes, cast him and ruin the franchise. Good. Like, the documentary is called, like, In the Making of... I think really all you have to type in is, like, Phantom Menace documentary or something. You should be able to find it.
Scenes or God knows what.
It is... It's really insightful, but it's funny, too, just because you actually see you get an insight of the inner workings of George Lucas's mind. You're like, shut up, you crazy old man. You should have let someone else take over. Not trying to... I don't hate George Lucas, but we'll get into why... Well, I guess, again, with Episode 2, again, there's a beginning, there's an ending. The middle is just cringeworthy because a lot of it is, like, the Senate and politics. And I will admit, I don't hate the political aspect to the prequels. Because with any war conflict, there will be politics. But there was too much of it.
So another problem is, given that this was aimed for a much, younger audience, they have no fucking idea what's going on. They're probably literally just looking at there wanting to see the pretty lights.
Here's my thing. George Lucas stated that the prequels are mostly meant for children. I call bullshit on that. Because no child wants to hear about Trade Tax Federation and tax law and Senate and no. They just want to see some badass lightsaber fights. And even though we got that in, like, towards the end of Episode 1 and, parts of Episode 2,
yeah,
you had to...
even though it was stupid how fucking Qui-Gon died.
Again,
there's no way he died.
Yeah. And Jar Jar, yes, he was meant for children, and he was, quote, Jar Jar is the key to everything. Yeah, I kid you not. In that documentary, like, he's explaining to people, like, when, I guess in the beginning of the production of the movie, like, I think even before they had casting, they had, like, this little, like, storyboard or whatever, and he's explaining to people, he's just kind of like, yeah, and, this is how, all this is gonna work out, and Jar Jar, he's the key. And I lost it. I started cracking up laughing. I'm like, you poor fool! But naturally, after the negative backlash, Jar Jar was essentially, like, really almost, like, taken out of the other movies entirely. For a good reason. Which I will give Episode 2 and 3 that. He at least made Jar Jar less of a presence. But
I think he only had one dialogue of 2, and then you only saw him in Episode 3.
I think he had a little bit of dialogue in 3, but yeah, it was, like, maybe 1 or 2 scenes. But, like, in Episode 2, though, some of the, like, I keep going back to the dialogue, because it's awful. Like, Anakin and Padme, like,
I hate them!
Yeah, like, he kills that entire, village of sand people, which, hey, I can't blame him. And that's one of those moments where you do kind of see him going to the dark side. Because unlike the original trilogy, which is
that's probably one of the reasons why I'd probably rank him more, because that's where you start seeing, I guess you could say
the transition between...
Yeah, or the downfall or the corruption of it.
Yeah.
Because Episode 1, which also is probably the big problem, with the fact that literally he jumps from a child to a late teenager between 1 and 2 versus in the original trilogy where it was still Mark Hamill, except it was 3 years apart, so you slowly and gradually between each film saw him grow. This one, it's like, wait, what the fuck just happened?
Well, also, like, towards the beginning of Episode 2, when Obi-Wan, like, the first scene where you see Obi-Wan and Anakin, they're talking about, like, some of their adventures, and it's kind of like, that sounds cool. Why didn't you show that instead of, like, Anakin talking to Padme? It's like, I hate sand. It's all coarse and gets all over the place. Unlike you, you're all soft and it's like...
Yeah, no, another thing that this makes sense, because another problem I've noticed is looking back at it, there are a lot of problems with Padme's character, for starting. Like, how literally from episodes 1 and 2, there's, like, no age transition, even though it's, like, 10 years later.
Yeah, she, I guess, is, like, drinking from the Fountain of Youth or something?
Yeah, she has she got the Holy Grail from, Indiana Jones' Last Crusade.
Yeah. I hope that makes it into this video.
What?
I said, I hope your, what is that, your text tone?
Yes, that's my text tone.
I hope that makes it into the video, or the recording.
Okay, just in case no one did hear it, because we're not going to stop despite that, my text tone played, and it's Scarface's Say Hello to My Little Friend.
Yeah, because I don't edit things, so that's... Hopefully it does make it in, you can just hear that. But anyways...
You heard it.
But another thing, too, is there was absolutely no chemistry between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen.
Oh, no.
Because again, George Lucas is a great visionary, he's a good big picture kind of guy, but not good at directing, especially actors. Like, he's okay at directing, just not actors.
No,
and
what's
so
really weird is some, I guess, things you've done. Like, the fact that, what's his name? Alec Guinness?
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember his name, played Obi-Wan. Like,
Yeah.
he was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor, Golden Globe, and an Oscar.
Yeah.
And then what's even more weird is that for episode 5, he tried to get Frank Oz. He literally spent $1 million campaign to try to get Frank Oz
Yeah.
for all, like, the Academy Awards and stuff. And of course it didn't work, but the main reason is because he was a, quote, puppet and not a actor. So voice acting doesn't qualify, but...
I think they should change it, especially like with, especially now with like Andy Serkis doing like motion capture. I think that should be one of those things where it's like, well, they still were acting, so give them a nomination or whatever. But anyways, also funny story about Alec Guinness. He hated Star Wars as well, and apparently, like during the original trilogy, he instead of getting paid salary for the movies, I think he agreed to getting like 2% of the. I guess, like, net worth or profits or something of the Star Wars franchise.
Like a lot of A-listers nowadays, they want profits from the movie.
Which is smart, because I think this was before, I mean, again, I want to say the contract was, like, you know, before Star Wars was, like, big, and I guess it was just because he hated it so much, he was like, whatever, just give me 2% of, like, the profit of, like, you know, merchandising or whatever, and so I think by the time he passed away, he was worth, like, over $1 billion.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, so it's like, in hindsight, he made a very smart choice.
What's funny is originally Star Wars, because this is what I've noticed, is just from the ending, with like the whole celebration stuff, it probably could have just ended and then they would have never made another sequel or movie off of it. Mm-hmm. Because originally George Lucas thought it was going to be terrible. In fact, there was actually like a very early non-finished draft that he released to some of his friends.
Yeah.
And one of them in particular, and one of them was Brian De Palma, who we all know is director of Scarface, The Untouchables,
fantastic director,
all that.
Yeah.
And literally, he said that was, quote, the worst movie I've ever seen, even though it was just an early draft.
Yeah.
So look, everybody thought it was going to go bad, and in fact, he thought it was so bad he didn't even show up to the premiere. He literally was like, "Hey, Spielberg, you want to go to Hawaii while movies in theaters? Yeah, why not?"
When they were driving past the Chinese theater where it premiered, there's like a huge long line, and he asked the people, it's like, "What's this line for?" They're like, "Star Wars, man." He's just like, "What?" But anyways, I guess like back to our the whole ranking and whatnot with Star Wars, and again, like I do like the because I will defend the prequels in this. There is a good story within the prequel trilogy. It's just everything was poorly executed. Because I like how, you know, in the original trilogy, it's very much the classic hero's journey. Whereas in the prequels, it's the villain's journey. You see where, like, okay, Anakin starts out as a young, innocent boy, and then you see his progression into madness, or, you know, going to the dark side. But I feel like he could have done more moments like that, because, you know, and again, in Episode 2 is really just him killing the village of sand people, and then him just kind of being a whiny bitch throughout most of the movie, complaining about, like, how life isn't fair. It's kind of like, oh, I love Padme, but I can't be with her, and I don't like sand. Why'd my mother have to die? And that's essentially his delivery. It, like, there's no emotion to it. And then there's the fight sequence at the end, which is really cool. Like, that was one of the highlights, that and the fight between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett. But that's about it. Like, all the in-between stuff, which again is mostly Senate debates and Senate meetings and tax stupid stuff, and Anakin and Padme's god-awful dialogue where you're supposed to believe that they're falling in love. It's like, no, that's...
Are we still talking about Episode 2, just to make sure?
Yeah, I think we've got, Yeah,
we haven't even moved on to Episode 3.
Yeah, okay, so Episode 3, in my opinion...
By the way, I honestly deem Episode 3 as a good movie.
Yeah, same with me, like...
This is where some people that are, like you said, are super hardcore fans are like, kill this fucker.
Like, I think everyone will agree that 3 is the best of the prequels, but I still think a lot of people like to give it hate.
Because one of my friends said Episode 2 was, and I'm like, how in the hell is 2 the best? And he's like,
No. 2 is the worst, in my opinion. And even if it's, you know, like, even for you, no, it's not the best. It's like one of the worst.
It's really not.
But, yeah, I will say that 3, like, I think just gets a lot of hate because it is attached to the prequels. But I'd say overall it's a good movie. And again, I just feel like the actors and everything, it was like, okay, this is our last chance to try and save this movie. And so they gave it what, they did what they could to the best of their abilities with the source that they had. And again, I do feel like the writing got a little bit better by 3. But yeah, overall, I thought 3 was a pretty solid movie. Had some really cool sequences, and again, that was when you really started to see the progression of Anakin into Darth Vader. And that was actually the first Star Wars movie up until Force Awakens, so it was PG-13. Because all the others were PG, but, with some of the content in Revenge of the Sith, killing younglings and stuff like that. Because I remember, actually, before the movie came out, and when they announced it was PG-13, people were like, what? Star Wars being PG-13? What's going on here? But yeah, I enjoyed 3. Like, there are moments, again, I think overall it's a solid film. I can watch it without, like, cringing at some of the dialogue. Again, is it perfect? No. But I think it's the best that it could have been.
Yeah. I don't know why. There's just... It's just... A part of me feels like we're just trying to get these prequels out of the way so we can move on to the better films.
Pretty much.
Although like I said, I still think 3 is a good movie, but...
Yeah. Again, I think a lot of people just give it a bad rap just because it's still in the prequels, but... I don't know, I feel like if you put your hatred for, like, 1 and 2 aside, and you just go into 3, like, it again, it's good. It's good. Not great, not perfect by any means, but it's enjoyable. You can go into that movie. There's not a whole lot of, like, cringeworthy dialogue, and just, like, the stupid scenes with Anakin and Padme. Like, everything just, I feel like, came together a lot better. And again, like, the ending, or towards the end, the fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan, I think that they did really good with not only the choreography, but it was actually, for the prequels, a pretty powerful moment, like, when, Obi-Wan's telling Anakin, he's like, I've won, I've got the high ground, and then Anakin, stupidly, is kind of like, whatever, man, I'm more powerful than you, because reasons, and then does that flip, and Obi-Wan's like, whatever, and pretty much, chops him in half, and then Obi-Wan is just like, dude, you were the chosen one, man. You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not join the Sith. You were my brother. Like, that moment was actually kind of sad.
Yeah.
But, let's move on to episode 4.
Well, hold on. There was one other thing I wanted to point out. This is going back to the problem I had with Padme's character. The other thing I thought ridiculous is that she was apparently having twins, and throughout the movie, she showed no signs of even having one child. It's like, okay, you have twins, but you look normal. Like, where's your... What?
Yeah, like, it did almost come out of nowhere where she's like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant with twins! Until the very end.
Then, of course, people are in the moment, we're just like, oh, this is Luke and Leia, and then more observant people are like, wait, how the fuck does she have twins? Are they, like, still, like, cells? Still developing? She doesn't look pregnant!
Not really.
Nobody did.
But, yeah. Anyways. So after 3 was 4, for you it was Empire Strikes Back, correct?
Yes, that was what I was probably my least favorite of the what's it called? The
original trilogy.
Yeah, the original
trilogy. Let's start with that. Explain yourself, sir.
This is where the interrogation comes in. But, like I said, there are definitely quite a few memorable moments, especially the moments where everyone probably flipped tables, such as when they found out Vader was Luke's father.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's just overall a lot of memorable moments. But probably my least favorite is because there were probably not as many shall we say, I don't even know how to put it. Like, probably what episode 4? Why? Or this is why I say it's because episode 4 it definitely had a lot of great introduction. It had the introduction to Vader, one of the most cinematic, one of the most iconic villains in film history. Then it had also a very interesting and great introduction to Han Solo. The well, we all know Han Solo. And then it also just kind of, I guess, really just kind of threw in all these characters first. While episode 5, it didn't really throw in anything new. Sure, it did have Boba Fett, but he wasn't anything. He wasn't, shall we say, as extravagant as Han or Vader or any of them.
No, like, again, people, including myself, we love Boba Fett, but let's be honest, he did nothing in the original trilogy. But, here's my defense, though, for that. When people are like, oh, he's overrated, he didn't do anything. For me, like, here's my argument. It's not like the amount of screen time that he had, but it's, that, makes him, less of a character or whatever, but it's the impact that he had. The fact that he was able to impact the Star Wars fan base so much by hardly doing anything and barely being the movies, but, like, people just identify with that character and they're like, that dude's a badass. I like this guy. I mean, granted, they expanded him, like his, story and stuff like that more in the comics and novels and stuff. But just from the movies alone, for the longest time, people were just like, Boba Fett, I'll remember that name because he's a badass. Based on, aside from his design, pretty much nothing. Like, I don't even think in the movies they explain that he's, like, one of the deadliest bounty hunters of the entire galaxy. Like,
I think they. Oh wait, no, never mind. That was something else I'm thinking of.
I mean, I think it's just one of those things where you kind of assume, especially like in episode 6 when, like, they're fighting at Jabba's floating palace, and Han is kind of, getting like his eyesight back from being frozen in carbonite, and Chewie growls and he's kind of like, "What, Boba Fett?" Boba Fett, like, almost, in distress. He's like, "Oh God, that guy! Don't want to run into him." And then he just gets knocked in the jetpack and falls in the Sarlacc pit. Very stupidly, but, I'll probably dive more into that when we get to that. But yeah, I guess, like, any other reasons why Empire is lower on your list? Because I guess for me, episode 4 is the lowest within the original trilogy, and even Force Awakens is. I know a lot of people are like, no, New Hope is great because it introduces to the universe and other characters and all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, again, I'm not denying that. Like, again, it's a great movie. And it was hard for me to rank, I guess, like, Force Awakens with the original trilogy, because one part of me is like, if I rank it, like, lower than the original trilogy, like, I imagine a lot of people will be angry and it'll be controversial. They're like, no, nothing can top the original trilogy. But with A New Hope, again, it's a great movie, and I'm not saying that A New Hope is far below Force Awakens. They're almost neck and neck. And I give the slight edge to Force Awakens. Again, I know a lot of people are like, nah, this is basically the same movie. They rehashed everything in Force Awakens. True to an extent, but Force Awakens is still a great movie, and I'm gonna give it the slight edge, not because of all the, technological advances and everything, but the flow. The flow in Force Awakens was almost seamless. Everything just, it flowed really well. The chemistry with all the actors were great. Not that the chemistry was bad in A New Hope or any of the other original trilogies, but just everything flowed so naturally, and I feel like, episode 4, I don't know, I'm not that it flowed badly by any means. I guess it was more just very, I'm trying to think of a good way to word this, I guess just like standard, filmmaking, maybe, where, you've got first act, second act, third act. I don't know, I guess just the flow. Not that it was bad by any stretch. I guess it's just it flowed better in Force Awakens. I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, but again, that's just my opinion. That's why I'm giving the slight edge to Force Awakens over.
4 or 5.
What?
Are you still comparing Force Awakens to New Hope or?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Just making sure I'm keeping up.
So what's next on your list after Empire?
Like I said, that's where then it's either 4 or 7. Like I said, I really don't know which to deduct. What I say is
Again, like they're almost neck and neck for me. A New Hope and Force Awakens.
Yeah, I can't remember. Where did you say you placed Return of the Jedi on your list?
Return of the Jedi is above Force Awakens, but below Empire Strikes Back.
So it's your second favorite?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember this. For anyone, we were pre-discussing this before we started recording.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know, Return of the Jedi, New Hope, Force Awakens, they're almost really neck and neck. I almost feel like it's time of day. Like, right now I'm saying it's New Hope, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi. Tomorrow it could be a completely different order, like Force Awakens, then New Hope, then Return of the Jedi. So, but as of right now, that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah. So, what's our next? What are we moving on to now?
So you're saying that, kind of like me, Force Awakens and New Hope, they're pretty much neck and neck for you?
Yeah, it's pretty much safe. Although I didn't discuss much with, episode 7.
Okay, so again, since you're, still fairly new to the Star Wars, franchise, because you really only started watching the movies, like, a week or two ago?
No, it's been about a month since I've started.
Okay, so about a month, but, you know, that's still relatively new. So what I guess, what were your first impressions on episode 7?
Let's see, my impression of episode 7 was, it definitely did have a lot of vibes to episode 4.
Yeah.
But it also had a lot of throwbacks to episode 4. Like one of them was it was like when they were first into the Millennium Falcon, and I forget who did it, but they like activated this chess.
Yeah, the hollow chessboard.
Yeah, it was like that, which was a throwback to when Chewbacca and R2-D2 were playing that back in episode 4,
yeah.
And where Chewbacca was about to destroy R2-D2.
Yeah.
But, so that was that, and then, what else was there? Another thing that a lot of people complained about was that they thought episodes had tried to be too funny. I personally didn't have a big problem with it, and some cases I didn't pay too much attention to the humor, but
I think
that was probably with the new little drone. I cannot remember what they called it. It was
BB-8?
like huh?
BB-8.
Oh yeah, he definitely had some funny moments. Like you said, I forget, what was your favorite moment that he did in the movie?
My favorite moment, like for sure with BB-8 was like when Finn, Rey, and BB-8 are on the Millennium Falcon, and Finn's telling BB-8, he's like, "Hey, you need to tell us where your base is, that way we can get you there." And BB-8's like, "No, that's classified." And you know, Rey's kind of like, "Well, what's the holdup?" While she's trying to repair the Millennium Falcon. And Finn's trying to convince BB-8 to give him the location to the base, and BB-8's kind of going back and forth, and then finally he's like, "Come on, man," or "Come on, droid," and then finally BB-8's like, he's like, "Yeah, the Ilenium system, that's the base, or that's the system the base is at." And then he gives BB-8 the thumbs up, and then that little lighter pops up and gives a thumbs up. I cracked up laughing, and I will full-heartedly admit that I'm sure on paper that sounded stupid and ridiculous, and, like, if I had read the script, I would have been like, that's really dumb. But, oh my god, when I saw that, I started laughing, and the entire theater burst out into laughter. I was like, yes! I think that was a defining moment where I fell in love with BB-8. Because prior to the movie, you know, they were really marketing BB-8.
Was it Jordan that BB-8?
No, it was Dave, one of the co-hosts on the channel. You know, he like from the get-go when they were really heavily marketing BB-8, he was like, "Nah, I hate it. It just looks like a R2-D2 head on a soccer ball." Whereas the rest of us, we were like, "I don't have a problem with it." And so, you know, he was really apprehensive. He didn't really like BB-8. He wanted nothing to do with BB-8 until we all saw the movie together. And then, we still expected him to absolutely hate BB-8. But after the movie, we're like, "So, did you hate BB-8? And he's like, "As much as it pains me to admit it, no, I actually liked him." He rolled his way into my heart. We're like, "Yeah! Suck it, Dave! You're dumb! We told you you'd like BB-8! So, but yeah, that was probably my favorite part with BB-8, and that was when it solidified that BB-8 is great.
Yeah. But, going back to what I was continuing to say about episode, but also there were a couple other throwbacks. Like, another throwback I really liked, it was when they were, I can't remember. I just remember it was played by Gwendolyn Christie.
Captain Phasma?
Brienne of Tarth?
Yeah.
From Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And it's where they were like, "What should we do with her?" And she was like, "Is there a garbage chute?" Yeah. The garbage chute, which was an ode back to when Luke, Han, and just about everybody on the Death Star jumped into the garbage chute in episode 4. Yeah. So there's that. But probably the big thing that I really liked, and this is something I seem to really like with a lot of things, whether it's film, games, anything, is the sound. The sound for the movie was terrific.
Yeah.
Especially my favorite part was the lightsaber duel at the very end.
Oh, yeah.
Just the sound effects, I was like, "Oh my god, yes!
Yeah.
Yes!"
Yeah.
That was probably just one of my favorite details. But then also, I guess, kind of at the very end, another big one, which is definitely going to be a big setup for the episodes 8 and 9, is when, Luke sees Darth Vader's lightsaber at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which, just from looking at that, it probably means that Luke is going to be probably from the beginning of episode 8, if I'd imagine.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they're gonna do the same thing, with this new trilogy, like cause, like, between New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, there was a 3-year, gap, not only just between the movies coming out, but, like, in real time. It'd been 3 years since the Battle of the Death Star in the movies. So I don't know if they're gonna do something like, in the opening crawl, it'll say something along the lines of, "It's been 2-3 years since the Battle of Starkiller Base," or whatever, or if it'll take place essentially right after, like, it'll pick up right after, Force Awakens ended and Rey is being trained under Luke. But again, I know a lot of people complain about how Force Awakens was almost beat for beat like A New Hope, and I get that, but here's the thing. I honestly feel as though you had to go backwards in order to go forward with the Star Wars franchise, because so many people hated the prequels. They had to...
Let's be honest, I don't think there probably is a single person that says, or any, I guess, super avid person, not just a casual person, like, "The prequels are the best fucking movies ever!" Like, I don't think anyone's like that.
I'm sure there's it's a pretty big world. Maybe not a whole lot of people. They're definitely the minority. But yeah, overall, most people will say, again, even the people who don't hate the prequels, such as myself, again, I don't hate them, but there's just a lot of flaws with them that prevents them from being anywhere close to the level of Force Awakens or the original trilogy. But again, with, Force Awakens, yeah, they played it safe. People were complaining about that. It's like, well, wouldn't you? For such a massive, beloved franchise, at least for Episode 7, you had to play it safe. Because if you had tried to do something too new and too different, then people would have been like, "Oh, I don't like it, this is different, it's prequels all over again." So, I get the criticism, but I respectfully disagree because, again, I honestly feel as though you had to make this move, make it feel very reminiscent of A New Hope, because that's what started it all, and also throw in little elements of, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and some new stuff. So that way it's still fresh enough to where you don't feel like you're just rewatching A New Hope all over again.
That's kind of the question is, what is... That's the thing with episode. Like, sure, it does got about another 2 years in development. But the question is it just gonna be its own thing, or is it also gonna take a lot of parts from Empire Strikes Back, which most people remember?
One part of me hopes that they do, now that they've set up everything, and they've, again, reintroduced everyone to this universe and this franchise, one part of me hopes that they do change it up a bit. Like, they do a bit more original stuff in Episode 8. But, again, since Empire is my favorite film, if they do...
Along with most people.
Yeah. If they do something similar to Empire Strikes Back, I'm not going to complain. As long as it's done well enough, like Force Awakens, where... Hopefully it won't be as close to Empire Strikes Back as Force Awakens was to New Hope. But if it's something kind of similar, because I do think that they need to take this movie in a darker direction, like Empire did. But, again, if they do something kind of similar to Empire Strikes Back, I'll be fine with it, because... I love that movie, and why not? Empire Strikes Back is a great movie, not just a Star Wars film, but it's a good movie, just in terms of, filmography and, or cinematography, rather. But I think it'll be more original stuff, in episodes 8 and 9, because they did have to kind of play it safe with 7, and be like, yeah, so this is a lot like the original, in particular, New Hope, but... Yeah, we kind of got to play it safe just to reestablish everything, introduce the new characters, but it'll pay off in 8 and 9, because they're playing the long game here. That's why there are a lot of mysteries, unanswered questions in Episode 7. That's intentional. Like, that was...
more interesting is they're actually going to come out a lot sooner, because for the original trilogy, and actually, now that I think about it, even the prequels, each film spanned 3 years.
Yeah.
But from looks of this things, each
year and a half,
2 years. Now, but then again, at the same time, there is some rogue shit. I don't remember what it is.
Rogue One.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's about. But supposedly that's coming out this year, and then Episode 8 will come out probably again same time around fall or winter.
It's actually May 17th, maybe sometime in like.
Yeah, they're pushing it a lot sooner then.
Yeah. Because I think essentially shortly after 7 wrapped up, they immediately started writing the script and everything for Episode 8. Like, I think they're already in production and filming for 8. But again, I'll like, some people are like, oh no, they're just rushing it, it's a cash grab. To a degree, it's a cash grab because it's Star Wars. But... Disney is really good with their IPs. I mean, look what they've been doing with the Marvel Universe. They have been doing phenomenal with all the Marvel movies and TV shows.
Yeah,
I feel like it's...
even with some of the lower points, like, such as, I think, it was... I can't remember. I want to say it was Thor the Dark World. People said that was probably the lowest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. It's still an entertaining, good film.
Yeah, I think it's still a good movie, but compared to...
Yeah, but I do understand why people say it was probably the low point in their films.
It's one of the lower tier Marvel movies, for sure. But we're just in that age where we've got so many good, superhero movies, to where even the good ones were like, that movie's not very good. Whereas if that had come out, 10, 15 years ago, people would have been like, it's revolutionary, greatest superhero movie ever made. So I guess, we'll move on to, I guess Return of the Jedi is next, on my list, and for you
it's actually at the top of my list, so I guess we can kind of both discuss unless there's something in between.
No, because after Force Awakens is Return of the Jedi, then Empire.
Yeah, but, so is there more you want to say about Empire, or...
Well, it's the reason why... I put Empire as my favorite is, I guess it had the benefit of being, a sequel where, because, New Hope was all just introducing the characters and this universe. And then Empire Strikes Back was just like, okay, we know the characters, we know the universe, bam, you're already invested in the character's story, and you have you have an idea of what's just anything that could happen in this universe. Space battles, lightsaber fights, futuristic cool aliens and creatures. And it starts off really strong where the rebels are essentially being hunted down and chased throughout the galaxy, and they're essentially on the outer rim on planet Hoth, this remote ice planet where probably
there's some really obscure creatures. I can't even remember what they're called.
Tauntauns, the ones that they ride, the Wampa, that abominable snowman-like creature.
Yeah.
And so, and really, probably the only reason that they set up a base on Hoth is because it's like, no one lives here. We can set up a base, and the Empire's not going to know about it, because why would they invest time to investigate an ice planet that is virtually uninhabitable by humans? And, pretty much from the get-go, it starts off pretty strong, where the Empire, they find out that the rebels are on Hoth, and they don't play around. They start sending, ships, an entire army, and the Imperial Walkers, the big four-legged things, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the proper terminology for some of the ships and creatures. They start sending the Imperial Walkers, and the rebels, as soon as they know the Empire discovers their base, they're like, we have to start evacuating now, because they don't stand a chance. They have a few people stay, just to kind of keep the Empire at bay, so that way they can successfully evacuate the planet. And that's where you see some cool battle sequences where, like, the, snow speeders are, they're using their harpoons, wrapping around the Imperial Walkers to trip them, because their blasters aren't gonna cut it. They don't even phase the Imperial Walkers. You even have AT-ATs.
Nothing really phased the Walkers.
What?
Like, nothing was. Even their, I guess, cannon missile things, even they said they didn't do shit.
Yeah. The AT-ATs, the two-legged, big machine things, they're sending those in, and then you've got your, ground troopers, or your snow troopers, and then, of course, TIE fighters. And also this really cool scene where once, his, snowspeeder crashes, so he's on foot, and basically he uses his grappling hook on a Imperial Walker, shoots up to it, and then cuts it open, throws a grenade in there, and takes down an entire Imperial Walker by himself. That was pretty badass. And then right after that, he goes straight to, the Battle of Hoth. He goes straight to the Dagobah system, meets up with Yoda, and, at first Yoda's this weird little feeble old creature. You think he's senile. And then turns out he's a Jedi Master, one of the greatest Jedi Masters. And, you get a...
This is kind of funny, because, this is where people are going to Christmas, because I actually started from the beginning. Yes, I literally started from 1, and then worked my way to 7.
I told him not to. I said original trilogy, then go to the prequels if you like the original trilogy enough. But, anyways.
Yeah, but definitely what it was that I've noticed, although, I'm trying to get it like that. Oh yeah, because this is what, because now, when originally Episode 5 came out, everyone thought Yoda was just this fucking feeble, crazy guy who lost his mind out in the middle of a damn swamp.
Yeah.
Which that really does, honestly, appear how he is.
Mm-hmm.
While, in my case, it was just like, because like I said, I started with 1, 2, and 3 first.
Yeah.
So then I was like, then, of course, there he looks sophisticated, and there it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Yoda's a straight-up badass in, Episode 2 and 3 with his fight scenes. Which, again, that was one of the highlights of the prequels, is you see Yoda in action.
I don't remember if he was in Episode 1. I don't think he was.
Yeah, Yoda was in Episode 1.
Oh.
He didn't fight or anything, but he was in there.
Yeah, he was probably very briefly.
It's just one of those things where I think that was, I don't know, just really cool. And again, you're like, well, this dude's like 2 feet tall. What all can he do? And then he he's telling Luke, he's just saying, judge me by my size, do you? And then lifts his X-Wing out of the swamp. You're like, damn! okay, you've got my attention, little guy. And again, even though you don't see him, fight or anything, it's when you see him lift that X-wing out of this swamp, you immediately you take him seriously. Like, oh, okay, yes, he is indeed a Jedi Master. Let's hear what this guy has to say. And then of course the really cool scene with on Cloud City, where basically after the Battle of Hoth, the Millennium Falcon's damaged a little bit, so they have to go to Bespin Cloud City.
Yeah, that's what. Even then, Han is already kind of predict because the guy, don't remember his name, but he's just like, I know him, but he's not trustworthy. But we got no choice.
Yeah, so that's the thing with smugglers is a good smuggler, even their best friends, they don't trust for good reason. Because again, Leia asks him, or asks Han, it's like, do you trust him? He's like, no, not at all. But we go way back, so maybe everything will turn out fine. And sure enough, they arrive at Bespin. Things seem to be well. Lando greets him, all buddy-buddy, and then turns out he set him up because the Empire arrived shortly before they did. And he's like, hey, I didn't have a choice. Vader showed up and told me that if I hand you all over, then he'll leave Bespin alone and we can do our own thing. And that they're setting up a trap for Luke. It's just really cool to see that internal struggle with Luke once he finds out that, Leia, Han, and Chewie, R2, and C-3PO are, in danger. That struggle, because Yoda tells him, he's like, yeah, they might be in danger, they might die, or they may not. You don't know that. The only thing you can do is stay here, finish your training, and become a true Jedi, or abandon your training and go save your friends who may or may not need you. And
he really did, and then just kind of came back in 6, and then he was just like, hey, Yoda, and then he was like, I'm dead, or I'm dying.
Yeah. But, because Yoda told him, he's like, once you do this, there's no going back. You're essentially going down the path of the dark side, where you're taking the easy way. But Luke being, not growing up being a Jedi, like, at a young age, he's just like, hey, I'll come back, don't worry, just let me take care of my friends first. Then, of course, that doesn't go well. That really cool confrontation between Luke and Vader, which is probably one of the most iconic scenes in cinematic history, not just because of some of the really cool lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader, but just for the reveal that one of the biggest, baddest villains is the father of Luke. That, like, I would...
in everybody probably fucking flipped a table.
Yeah, like, I would love to go back in time, go see Empire Strikes Back, have my memory wiped briefly, just that way I could experience that for the first time and be like, ah! Ah! And then have to
see what other people were doing in there.
Oh yeah, that too. Or just like sit in the theater. It's like, where's the part? And because I'd just be like sitting there laughing, like, dude, stop laughing. This is an intense moment. It's like, just wait.
Yeah, actually, assuming it wasn't spoiled, do you remember what your first reaction was when you saw episode 5 for the first time?
Again, I was very young, probably about like 4 or 5, but I imagine it didn't quite resonate with me as much just because I was so young. But yeah, I do remember watching that, and I was just kind of like, "What? That's his dad!" Because I watched it with my father. And I imagine he was probably just giggling the whole time. He's like, "Oh, just wait till he finds out." And then, sure enough, as a kid, sitting on the floor watching it, I was just kind of like, "What is this? That's his dad." Yeah, and then I'm sure my dad was kind of like, ha 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 ha, I didn't see that coming, did ya? Of course, I also had the luxury of having the original trilogy on VHS, back in the day when that was a thing. So I didn't have to wait 3 years. I was just kind of like, I need to watch the next one now. So yeah, fond memories, of course, growing up in the early 90s watching VHS, and the original cut of the original trilogy. Not when George Lucas...
is unfortunately not what I'm able to, just because it almost seems like they're not easy to find, so I did kind of watch the non-theatrical cuts, but at least I did know what originally happened. Like, I knew Han shot first, I knew fucking, all that.
Although, I've heard, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is confirmed, but I have heard that Disney is planning to release the, like, theatrical cut of the original trilogy. Which, hopefully that is the case, just that way...
It's a probability, knowing that a lot of people nickname Disney the three circles with a fuck ton of money.
Yeah. And I think that's a wise choice, so that way they can appease the fans of the original trilogy, and kind of just be like, hey, George, we love what you did, but then you went a little crazy, and you edited these perfectly fine films, and then you gave us some not...
Like, some of them, I just saw, and I was like, thank God this is not, like, probably one of the most stupidest ones I saw. It was in episode 5, where, Luke, jumped down the little chute hole.
Yes.
Spiral thingy, and originally he just jumped.
Yeah.
But for some reason, George, and I forget which cut it was, but George Lucas added where Markham was screaming on the way down.
Yeah, the entire time he was falling, he's like, ah! And just ruined it. I was
just so happy. I was just like, I was like, thank God this is not in here, because that looks so fucking stupid.
And it just makes him seem like a little bitch boy, where, he basically makes a statement when Vader's like, join me, join the dark side, and he just jumps off, he's like, no, not doing that. More or less committing suicide, because he doesn't know if he's gonna survive. And it's a powerful moment, because you're like, yeah, he'd rather kill himself than join the dark side. So it kind of diminishes that act with him falling and just being like, ah, the whole time.
And everybody was waiting for, which they had to wait 3 years for Return of the Jedi to finally bring home, which is probably one of the reasons why here's the thing. I had quite a few complaints with Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Later I'll get into them, but it was still for my favorite just because it tied everything up in the end, and it was not the best, but it was a definitely acceptable conclusion to what was the trilogy at the time until Episode 7 came about.
Well, I think there was another thing that I liked about Empire Strikes Back is, rather than end on a happy note, like 4 and 6, it ended on a big cliffhanger, because, Han gets frozen in carbonite, you don't know if he's gonna survive or not. Harrison Ford even wanted to die in Empire, and then wanted to die even more in Return of the Jedi. And
but
so
he finally got his wish in Episode 7.
Yeah, and by the way, if that got spoiled for you,
it's like Sean Bean doing a bunch of movies. He's like, "Can I finally do a fucking movie where I die again?"
Yeah. But yeah, the way it ended, it wasn't very happy at all. Like, sure, Luke survived, and they managed to escape the Empire, but, again, Han's frozen in carbonite, and then you have to deal with the fact that the worst villain in, the Star Wars universe, and arguably one of the best villains in cinematic history, is the main protagonist's father. And so that's that internal struggle with Luke, is he's trying to just process all that, where he got his hand cut off, that's already pretty traumatic, and then while suffering from having his hand chopped off, gets a bomb dropped on him, where Vader is just like, nah, I didn't kill your father. I am your father! And then, so, that was great.
And it helps everything that it was done by James Earl Jones.
Yeah. Who's got a fantastic voice. So yeah, Empire for me is the best, but now we can go on to Return of the Jedi, which is your favorite and my second favorite.
Yep.
So we kind of talked a little bit about it. So I guess what made Return of the Jedi your favorite?
Well, first off, let me talk about the complaints I had with it.
Okay.
Probably the first complaint was, a lot of people complain about the Ewok scene. I didn't, it was like, oh my god, this needs to be out of the film, but
I didn't hate it.
In some cases, I thought it was just a tad bit, too much. They could have chopped it up. But it was still just, I guess, there. But also, probably another thing is, it probably had one of the worst screen effects I've seen from the 80s, specifically with the little freaking bike pod things while they were going through
the speeder bikes?
Yeah, just looking at it, the greenscape effects were just honestly laughable. It's like, what's this shit? And then there were just overall some other complaints here and there. But in the end, despite it probably was one of the movies where I maybe had the most complaints, but I still thought it was probably my favorite in the end. Just like I said, because it tied up everything, especially as in the fact that Luke found out Leia was his sister.
Yep.
Han got to be with Leia in the end. Luke got to fully know that Vader was his dad. The Emperor was dead, and then probably the biggest thing is that the Force balance was returned to it.
Yeah. So for me, again, I'll start off negative and then go positive. So most of my complaints with the Return of the Jedi, I know a lot of people hate the Ewoks. I don't hate them. Yeah, are they the best part of the movie? No, they're probably one of the worst parts, but I don't hate them. Like, it's fun. But here's, again, my main complaints are the things that were added to the film later, like this asinine,
I was wanting to say that, but I was originally thinking, let's go with the theatrical cut, but I know where this is going.
And everyone will agree with me, and if you don't agree, you're stupid. I know you're entitled to your own opinion, but that opinion is dumb. But that asinine, ridiculous, completely unnecessary song with those aliens in Jabba's palace, which I know there is a like song and dance number in the original cut, but it didn't add anything to the scene, but it felt a bit more natural than the stupid CGI stupid song number that is awful, and I hate it, and it's not needed. They need to wipe it from the face of existence, because it's awful. Not only the song...
I wonder if someone interviewed it and said, George, like, so, why did you add this thing? Because it was sort of, like, it had, like, these long-ass lips. It was just like, what the fuck is this?
Like, okay, here's the thing. If he had just gone into the original trilogy and just, like, kind of polished things up, which he did a little bit, he polished some things up with CGI, perfectly fine. But, like, what part of him thought that was a good idea? Where it's like, Jabba's palace needs a song and dance number. I'll just digitally insert some little aliens, and he doesn't even translate it in English, which, not that would have really improved it, but it's kind of like, I don't even know what this song's about. Why are they singing? Why is this scene happening? God, I hate that scene. It is awful. It is so bad. Like, it is like prequel quality. It's like a prequel quality scene. Like, if that happened in the prequels, I would have forgiven it a little bit more. It still would have been god-awful. But why, George Lucas? Why?
Wait, which scene were you talking about?
The stupid song and dance number with those CGI aliens.
God, you can
I hate it so much. Okay. Let's.
Like, there are a lot of other really weird ones. Like, another one I remember was, I don't know what your thoughts was. It was near the very end of the movie. It was where. It was, actually, hold on a second.
While there's dead air, I'm gonna keep going on about how much I hate that song and dance number. It is awful. Awful. George Lucas should be ashamed of himself.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, but I'll let you finish your...
No, I was just...
This might be the rest of the podcast.
Oh, I could do an entire thing just complaining about that stupid, god-awful scene that...
Oh
okay,
God.
anyways, say what you were gonna say.
All your friends think it's stupid.
Yes.
Oh my God, we need to get them all in here, and that way they're just like, okay, this is the guy Jake has as his podcast when we're not here. but yeah, sorry about that. But it was the one scene I was thinking of. It was at the very end. It was so originally what it was is Vader just saw Palpatine zapping the living shit, and then he was like, okay, you know what, I hate you, I'm gonna throw you over. Which again, I was like, yeah, because that's probably another reason why, because I don't know what other people think, but this is just my opinion. I'm probably going to get shot even by you. Because another reason why I liked it, because probably one of my most hated characters in the series died. Because Jabba the Hutt died. He's just this gross fucking diabetic
slug monster. Yeah.
Which I was like, yay, he died by Leia, even though I made her his bitch, but still. And then Palpatine died in the end, so I was like, yay, they died.
Yeah.
But, so that's what it was, is Vader just saw it and he was like, okay, no, you're not going to kill him. So he just picks up the throw. Now, the cut I saw, which again, I know this is not originally there, is Vader was, he kind of did what he did at the end of episode 3 was just like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, and then he picks him up and then throws him down.
Yeah.
The shaft.
It wasn't the worst thing that was added in, but I think it was more powerful in the original cut, where Vader, you just, like, there wasn't need for dialogue. You just, when he's looking back and forth between Luke and the Emperor, you know there's that internal conflict going. And that's one thing that I loved about the original trilogies, prior to the editing. And even in Force Awakens, the more subtle, things, where you didn't have to have everything explained to you. It was just, you knew what people were thinking based on, like, facial expressions or just, like, little subtleties, whereas on a lot of instances in the prequels, it was just ham-fisted in your face. It's like, Anakin and Padme are in love! Yeah, they're in love! They're in love! Do you not understand they're in love? It's like, you didn't have to do, like, 20 minutes of them on Naboo, in that stupid meadow having a picnic, that awful dialogue about sand.
And then there was, like, some fucking creature that they were doing, like, backflips and shit off of.
Yeah. Well, yes. Anyways, before I go off on another tangent, so yeah, yeah, that wasn't the worst thing, but it was still, it kind of diminished the scene where Vader was like, no! It's like, no, it was fine, because you saw that internal conflict, and Vader, at the last minute, was like, no, I don't like this, that is my son, and you're an evil dick. And then he picked him up and threw him in that thing and blew him up. So that was a really cool scene in Return of the Jedi, where, you know, again, Luke in, you know, towards the beginning of Return of the Jedi, he's telling, like, Yoda and Leia, he's like, no, there's good in him, I can sense it. And they're like, you're dumb, dude. No, there's no good in him left. But Luke, being the optimist that he is, and probably just wanting to believe that there's good left in his father, pays off, and there's that really nice scene where, you know, Vader's like, help me take my helmet off so that way I can, for once, look at you with my own eyes. He's like, well, if I take the helmet off, you'll die. It's like, well, it's too late for that, I'm gonna die anyways. So it's that bittersweet moment where he redeemed himself, but by doing so, he's dying. He's gonna die. So it was that really beautiful moment with those two, and just a little dialogue that there was there in that scene between the now redeemed Vader and Luke. I thought that was really well done. What? Your mic is breaking up.
Well,
You might have to repeat that. Your mic was breaking up really bad.
Yeah,
What? Sort of, but not really. Huh? Okay, sorry about that. Little technical difficulties, recording over Skype, but you know, we were just kind of talking about, that really nice scene towards the end of Return of the Jedi between Luke and Darth Vader.
Yeah. Like I said, what I was saying is, I hope I still sound better, do I?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, just a second. What I was saying is, because if I remember correctly, whatever they were on, I think it was like kind of blowing up, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, we need to leave!"
Oh, yeah.
But then Luke was just so determined to get Vader out of there. He was like, "You're coming with me. You're not gonna die. Come on." And everyone was like, "What the fuck are you doing? He's gonna die. Run for your lives!" And he was just like, "No, my dad's coming with me."
Yeah.
Guys. But of course, he didn't make it in the end.
Yeah, but at least gave him a, proper funeral to commemorate that he, once again became Anakin rather than staying Darth Vader and dying a villain.
Which is another edit I remember is, I can't remember who originally did it, but in the 2004 DVD cut, this was written stuff literally like months or even maybe a year prior to episode 3 coming out. What George Lucas did is he replaced, I can't remember whoever.
Bernard Shaw, I believe.
Yeah, he replaced him with Hayden Christensen, and as I think, I know he was definitely as his Force Spirit, but I think he was also in the Vader costume. He just did like a bunch of makeup and cosmetics and.
No, it's still Bernard Shaw, but yeah, they did replace him for whatever reason with Ghost Anakin or Hayden Christensen, which.
No, I know there was something he did to him while he took off the mask. There was some cosmetics they did. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, supposedly the whole reason why they did that is, I think it was something to do with episode 3, which came out literally the year after that cut came out. Once again, I don't remember what it was, but most people don't remember much. But that was just another one of the edits. Actually, now that I think about it, episode 6 probably did not have a lot of edits, but it probably, as you know, it probably had some of the worst edits in it.
Yeah, yes, it did.
This was pretty minor, and actually, this might almost be an improvement. Was he did something with the Lazarus pit, he made it more
Sarlacc pit.
Sarlacc pit. Yeah, I don't know why it's the Lazarus pit. I can never remember, but I don't remember what he did. I think he made it more. He made it look better. He gave more tentacles. I don't remember, but he did something to it.
I actually disagree. That was one of my lesser editing issues, but I feel like the Sarlacc pit looked perfectly fine without the more tentacles and the CGI beak or whatever. Because in the original cut, it's just like this basically hole with teeth all around it. I don't know, just me being nitpicky. Again, it was nowhere near as bad as that stupid song and dance number in Jabba's palace, but I mean, yeah. But aside from this stupid random editing, Return of the Jedi is still a pretty solid film, and I know some people, Richard, one of the co-hosts for the channel, in particular, it's not his favorite, I think that's actually his least favorite of the original trilogy. He says that, Return of the Jedi was the beginning of the downward, spiral with the Star Wars trilogy, which...
Yeah, actually, I think review-wise, especially Metacritic, I think Revenge of the Sith got a better Metacritic score than Return of the Jedi, which is pretty crazy, but Rotten Tomatoes score-wise, it was, I think, on par. It was still somewhere in the 70s, maybe.
Yeah.
I can definitely kind of see it. But, here's the way I kind of see it, is you literally start from 1, and then go all the way up, which a lot of people, and Jake here himself, does not recommend it. If it literally seems like you start off with 1, which is bad, depending on how you look at it, but most are going to look at it as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But then as it goes on, it gets better. 2 is better, 3 is better, 4 is better, 5 is better. Some cases 6 was better, and then 7 was great.
Well, it's the main reason why, because when I do talk to people who are new to Star Wars, and they're kind of well, what order should I watch them in? Because they're aware that the order's a little different. And so I'm like, okay, here's what you do: go episodes 4 and 5, and if you really like those 2, then consider 1, 2, and 3 a flashback. Watch those 3, and then hopefully you'll enjoy them. And even if you don't, you at least get to end on a high note with episode 6, and again, I know some people are like, but 6 is, like, one of the weak ones of the original trilogy, which, that's, debatable, but it's still a good film, and you end on a higher note than if you watch the original trilogy and then the prequels. And then, with this new film, it's like, okay, you end on a high note with Episode 6, and then you start off essentially fresh with Episode 7, which, in my opinion, is a great way to start off this new trilogy. That's the order that I recommend, but for people such as yourself, which is commendable, going in numerical order, hats off to you, sir, because you didn't hate the prequels so much that you were like, no, I am completely turned off by this.
I was going in with super, super low expectations, but it still surpassed. It was like,
okay,
this wasn't, like, terrific, but it was surprisingly better than I said, because I just heard people bash it and bash it,
yeah.
So I was like, oh, this really must be one of the worst films ever. But then I saw it, and it was, honestly, I liked it some more than what a lot of other people disregard.
Well, I think if the prequels, if like you had named them if they had come out as just an original space movie without Star Wars in the title and Jedi, Sith, and lightsabers, people probably would have liked them a lot more. But since it was Star Wars and it had to live up to such a high expectation, I think that's one of the main reasons why the prequels are so negatively, seen so negatively, and, poor dialogue, and the fact that, you had great actors like Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, and just, several other really good actors, but in the prequels they're kind of just bland.
But, I don't know, it's, hard to say, because I guess if you were to start somewhat from the very beginning, would you say probably just skip 1 entirely and then start from 2, or would you still probably just say start with 1 and then if you were to start from the very, very, very beginning?
And if
some people say skip 1 entirely and just go to 2 if you're going to do it that way.
I disagree, but because again, I guess one of the benefits if you start from numerical order is you're at least getting better as you go.
That's how I personally viewed it, is they kept getting better as they kept going along.
And again, even as I said, 2 is more entertaining, but as a film, 1 is better. But I guess for your average moviegoer, they're not looking for story and plot and all that stuff. It's just this movie's, episode 1, I could see why people would say that's weaker. But if you wanted to go in numerical order, it's probably not the worst thing, just because again, the movies keep getting better. But I just gotta hope that you don't.
Probably the worst thing you could do is start from 7 and then go down.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Although there were people who did that. I know there are people.
Do this. It's like you're watching them all in reverse.
I mean, there are people who did that, though. I know, on the internet, there are people who, they saw Episode 7 for the first time. That was their first Star Wars movie, which, thankfully, Episode 7 was able to stand on its own enough to where I think people could enjoy it, and then, but it's one of those things where if you had watched the original trilogy, then Episode 7, a lot of the events, and the characters, it was just more impactful and meaningful, with some of the things that happened in Episode 7. So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's just, again, especially, what happened to Han, it wouldn't have been as impactful, because you're like, oh, well, that old guy died. That sucks, but whatever. Whereas...
Yeah, I remember one of my friends, because he went to go see it, he saw it with a bunch of his friends, including his girlfriend, and he just recently caught her up on all the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Which I told her she was the one that said that Jar Jar was adorable. A lot of people are probably like, "Fuck that bitch!" Now.
She's wrong. She's wrong.
But what it was is she was just in the theater and she was like, "Oh, that sucks. He's dead." While my friend, he was literally almost bawling his eyes out just because. Well, like I said, he grew up so much on it, and he was the hell out of Han Solo, and then, well, he's just kind of dead.
Like, it was sad, but it was one of those things where I knew it was coming, because I was like, that's probably the only way Harrison Ford agreed to come back is if he died, and sure enough, that was the case.
What was the reason why he didn't want to keep doing the films?
Because apparently he just hated being in Star Wars, and yeah, he just didn't really like being on Star Wars. I think that was the main reason. But again, I think it was one of those things where the right people were involved with this movie, and he did seem to genuinely enjoy being in the movie.
Well, hell, it made him into international stardom, and then it led him into Indiana Jones, which only furthered his career and his bank account.
Oh yeah. Like, I'm sure there's, like, more specific reasons as to why he didn't like it, but it's just one of those things where, like, over the years, he's kind of talked negatively about, Star Wars. But it just made it more important that he did come back for Episode 7, and it just made it more impactful, because it was one thing for them, for, like, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill to return, but people were like, but is Harrison gonna come back? And then sure enough, it was like, and Harrison Ford's coming back! You were like, oh my god, yes!
Yeah, actually, they literally brought back almost everybody. They even brought back Chewbacca.
Yeah, Peter Mayhew, Anthony Daniels, who's C-3PO. I think even Kenny Baker, who was R2-D2.
Yeah, even though R2-D2 had literally almost minimal impact, but I still believe it wasn't really him.
They even brought back the actor whose name escapes me, the guy who played Admiral Akbar, and I don't know if it was the same actor who played Nien Nunb. As well, but at least the character they brought back.
I cannot remember who those two were in the films and which ones they were.
Akbar is one of the most probably next to Vader, I would argue, is one of the most iconic catchphrases. Is "It's a trap."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
The fish-looking guy.
Episode 7?
Yeah, he was in Episode 7. Not very much. He was only in like one scene. But it's still one of those. It's just one of those cool things where you're like, "What? They even brought Akbar back? Holy shit!"
I can't remember, where was he in the? When did he appear in the movie? Do you remember?
It was, I think it was right before they went to attack the Starkiller base. He was kind of like.
Wait, wasn't that like? I guess that whole base thing where Kylo Ren found out where they were, and then. That's kind of where, then there's like a giant ship battle and stuff, and then you see C-3PO and all them. If you remember.
No, that was after that scene. This was, like, right before they attacked Starkiller Base.
No, wait, wasn't it when they were, like, all in, like, the intelligence room, and they were all discussing how they were gonna go? Okay, now I remember that scene.
Yeah. So yeah, like, that caught me by surprise. I did not expect to see, not only that character, but even, like, the same actor came back, which... You didn't need to, but it's still cool to see these beloved characters come back. Like, I still would have liked it if he said it's a trap again, even if it had nothing to do with, like, it was completely out of context, just, like, right after their briefing of, like, here's Starkiller Base, here's how we blow it up, he just ran and was like, it's a trap! Just so it's like, haha!
Watch, now J.J. Abrams is gonna be George Lucas and like, oh, I'm gonna put this quote in then during the post, and then something after the credits, he goes, it's a trap! Black screen.
Let's hope that's not the case. But if they do, I'll probably just laugh and be like, JJ, you sly son of a bitch. But since we're going about an hour and a half, I'd say we can wrap this up. So I guess just...
This will get fun upload for you, and hopefully it does get uploaded.
Yeah, it just, when I get the free time, I'll upload it. But mostly just wanted to kind of have your perspective on the Star Wars franchise, since, again, you're fairly new. So I guess, like, before we end this, do you think the Star Wars movies live up to the expectations, or do you think that it's an overrated franchise?
How to put this? Shit. Lord of the Rings is better?
I can see that, like, I'm
Everyone's like, no, get this guy out of here!
Okay, so... I can see why why you'd say Lord of the Rings is better, but, like, would you say that Lord of the Rings... the Star Wars movies, do you think that they, are adequately put up on the high pedestal that they deserve to be? Or I guess, in particular, like, the original trilogies and this new one.
Like, it's a good series, but I personally don't think it's dubbed the best, or like it's definitely the most iconic.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it's personally for me. I wouldn't say it's the best. They're all pretty great films in their own ways, but I wouldn't. But just for me, it's not like this is the best damn thing ever.
Okay,
no,
that's
not
fair.
how I view it. But they're still good, enjoyable movies to watch.
Nice again. One more.
Say I'm more of the, I guess, casual fan, not the super in-depth. Like, I do know quite a bit about them, but I'm not like where I want to know everything and I watch them 100 times over and over again. No,
Okay.
It's just kind of a casual thing. It's like, okay, I've seen them, I know about them, I can talk about them. Yeah, that's that.
That's fair. I guess like one more thing before we wrap this up. After seeing episode 7, are you now more excited to see episodes like 8 and 9 and just future Star Wars movies, or are you still more or less on the casual level?
I'm definitely going to go see them, but again, I'm probably not, unless it somehow is super damn well, I'm probably not going to go see it like 3 or 4 times like you did, or a lot of other people.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 times, and
it's like, oh, it's coming out, yeah, I'll go see it.
Okay, that's fair. So yeah, there you have it. This is Tyler's opinion on the franchise, where you rank the movies. Someone, again, who's really only been watching the movies for about a month. Which, again, I think...
Yeah, and like I said, one day, I literally watched 4 through 7 in one day because I stayed up all night. And then after I saw 4 through 6, literally one after the other, then I was like, then I wanted to go out to see episode 7, and then I slept for a long time.
So there you go. Even if it's not his favorite, he still binged pretty much the best Star Wars movies right in a row. So... Give him praise for that, at least. Even if you disagree with some of his points or his ranking, or even if you disagree with my ranking, I'm curious to see what you all would rank the Star Wars franchise from, like, your best all the way to worst. So leave your comments below, and if you hate our opinions, feel free to leave your comments on your hatred for us, because your hatred completes me, and it's entertaining to see people's hate.
And I'm still quite curious, because I don't know if anyone has stated if they think I'm a great addition to Jake's channel, or they should say I should just fuck off and go die. But I'm still yet to wait to hear, and hopefully I can still get to appear in more videos on Jake's channel.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to point out is I do have a channel of my own. It is TCM6420. Hopefully Jake will remember to leave it somewhere. If not, I'm here. And I would like to say right now, because I finally got better internet recently, I'm probably going to start putting up more videos up on my own channel, specifically about films, because it's one of the big things I'm really interested in.
He's a pretty knowledgeable guy when it comes to films, so...
Yeah.
So yeah, once he starts doing, like, movie reviews and whatnot, start subscribing to this guy's channel, or go ahead and subscribe, so that way you'll be ahead of the game, and once he uploads videos, you'll know right off the bat.
Yeah, because right now I want to say there are currently 2 videos I'm working on, and one of them is possibly going to go up in possibly a week, maybe even less than that.
Perfect. So, he's an upcoming guy. Feel free to check out his channel and give him nothing but love. Because, be nice, people. Quit being, just quit being assholes.
I don't want your damn pizza in your fire.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that wraps up this video. So until next time, everyone, cheers.